Hey, all right, so we are going to look at intro to functions. The very last thing we're going to be looking at is an example problem and really fleshing an example problem out. This particular example problem, if we look at it, y is equal to the absolute value of negative x plus 2 is not going to be a line like the last problem was. This is going to be an absolute value. So let's see what absolute values sort of look like when we actually graph them out. Now, a couple of things. This problem is giving me some very specific values to look at. If I am not given specific values to look at, I get to create my own, and the ones that I usually use are -2, -1, 0, 1, 2 every single time. However, if the problem itself gives me a table or it gives me values that I need to use for my inputs, I can only look at those, okay? And so because of that, all I'm going to be plotting on this graph is going to be a bunch of dots. It's going to be a dot when x is equal to 0 and x when it is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's it. I'm not going to plot anything more because what's important that you understand with functions is there's things that's called discrete functions and things that are called continuous functions. And if I'm given very specific points, another way that I can describe those is I'm given discrete points. And when I'm given specific points to look at, I can only graph those points. That's the goal of this. I don't want to know what 0.5 is or anything like that. I don't know that this function continues in between each of those points. So I'm just going to plot dots where those points end up coming out and where the outputs provide me information. So I'm going to add numbers into my input column. After that, I'm going to start solving these. I'm going to organize this a little bit more so I can keep myself a little bit straight. All right, so I'm going to put in 0 into this absolute value equation. So if I put 0 in there, I'm going to rewrite this absolute value equation as -0 plus 2 absolute value, and I'm going to solve this. -0, 0 plus 2 is 2. The absolute value of 2 is 2. So my coordinate pair is 0, 2, which I can then graph here. I'm going to add some tick marks to make this a little easier to see. So I'm going to graph this at 0, 2, 0, 2, right there. Cool? Next, 1. I'm going to put that into this absolute value equation. Absolute value of -1 plus 2 and absolute value. -1 plus 2 is 1. Now the absolute value of a +1 is still 1. And let's think absolute value means the distance away from 0. So this 1 that comes out of this, how far away is 1 from 0? It is 1 unit. So 1, 1 is my point that I'm going to plot. 1, 1, right there. Next one, 2. I'm going to put that into this absolute value. Absolute value of -2 plus 2 and absolute value. -2 plus 2 equals 0. The absolute value of 0, so the distance 0 is from 0 is 0. So my coordinate point, 2, 0. 2, 0. Next, 3, I'm going to put that in here, -3 plus 2 and absolute value. -3 plus 2 is 1, or -1. -1 is how far away from 0? It is 1 unit, a +1 unit. Absolute value turns every one of those negatives into positives because distance is always talked about in a positive way. 3, 1 is my next point. So 3, 1. Ooh, interesting. I'm starting to go back up a little bit. I'm going to put 4 into this absolute value of -4 plus 2 and the absolute value. -4 plus 2 is -2. -2 is how far away from 0? It is 2 units, 2 positive units away from 0. So I get 2. So my coordinate pair, 4, 2. It's my last one, 4, 2. Now, if I were to look at this, I can see that this absolute value is sort of forming a V shape. Well, let's actually plot these a little bit better. It's forming a V shape. So I see a V shape with those points. So I can say, like, if the question then asks me, like, what sort of shape is my graph? I can say it looks like a V. Like the letter V. So it looks like a V shape. All absolute values tend to have a V-shaped pattern to them, which is kind of cool. You're also going to end up seeing equations that look like this. Y is equal to x squared plus 3, for example. And if you look at this one, if you plot it out, it ends up having sort of a U shape. We will also look at lines that are just sort of a straight line, and you might say it's a line, or it's a line with a positive slope, meaning it goes up to the from left to right, and that sort of thing. Either way, I expect this level of work when you are doing things on tests or quizzes. So if I ever ask to see work, I want to see this sort of level, like this much detail. Start working on your mandatory practice problems or your must-do practice problems, and don't forget to take the exit pass. I will see you later. Bye.